Sorry about that. I had to check something. Um, well, I decided to talk about Sam Raimi Spider-Man. Came out like early 2000s, and what can I say? When I first saw it, I was impressed. I had Spider-Man on the brain. My original introduction about him was the '90s cartoon. With the awesome rockin' theme song. Spider-Man, and you know, I knew all the characters and stuff, but I had no idea about until recently about the Japanese version, Stanley's Japanese live action film back in the oldies. I had no idea about how it inspired Power Rangers. Apparently, so that's amazing. But something that was interesting for me was when I found out about this. I was, you know, it was basically like I felt like that kid from Jingle All the Way who wanted Turbo Man so bad. That's how I felt. I was ecstatic. I was happy. Well, anyway, how I found out about it was I was in. I want to say I think I was in middle school at the time. It was middle school, and we were on the. It was we were in the. It was like I think PE laptop, and I was just chilling in the back. I was just resting behind this tree, and this group of kids were talking about movies, and I heard them talk about Spider Man. They were discussing the Spider Man film that was coming out, and it caught my attention because I love Like I said, I love superheroes. I love film. Um, and I started listening in, and they showed me pictures, of the movie that was coming out. They're like, oh, it's gonna be the Green Goblin. They got this guy, they got this guy, they got this guy, and I'm like, okay. And they showed me pictures. I was like, who are these guys? I feel like I know them. I feel like I've seen them before. And I didn't think about googling anything. I didn't have a phone at the time. I didn't know anything about it. But how I found out, how I researched the movie that time was, well, one of my cousins, he bought the book at a book fair, and he let me borrow it, and I started reading it because I was recovering from my surgery at the time, and I started reading it, and I got sucked in that I couldn't give him back the book. I was getting into the book, and I was reading it, and by the time I finished it, I was like, I gave it back to him. I was like, whoa. And by the time I finally got to see it, I knew every facet of the movie was gonna happen, was gonna go down, and then you know, and it was me, my mom, and my dad, and my mom was like, okay, so what's gonna happen? Who's this? And I started telling her, and it was one of the memories I always remember, because my at that time my dad was like, shh, I'm trying to watch the movie, um, but over time he's like, okay, so what's happening? So it put me to that's what basically kickstarted my talking about movies thing. But it took a while for me to get in front of the camera and do it now. So here I go. Well, the movie back then, like I said, I was enamored with it. I loved it. I thought it was great back then. I was all up in it. Spider-Man, and all this stuff. I had no idea about what Sam Raimi was behind. I had no idea about certain the people yet until I started. I started watching it and I got into it, and I started researching and studying, and I thought it was awesome. I studied it like you would study if you you would study an exam. I knew everything about it, but you know, um, and back then it was my thing. I loved Spider-Man. I loved superheroes. It took over my whole being from middle school to high school. I became a superhero, and kind of a superhero nut. So props to Sam Raimi Spider-Man for that. I gave it props. Like I said, I'm gonna do a review on Spider-Man, on Sam Raimi Spider-Man, and then next time I'm gonna do one on Mark Webb's, and then maybe do a comparison, and then Like after I finally go see the new Spider-Man, Far From Home, which I realized in my previous video I said Homecoming, but I really meant Far From Home. So I'm correcting that now. Well, anyway, the movie, of course, everyone who's seen it already knows. It's basically his origin story, live action. You know, he's a bumbling nerd. He's a bumbling, awkward around women or around females, especially the girl of his dreams. Doesn't know how to approach her. Doesn't know how to tell her how he feels. And then, they go. He has a bully. He has a best friend, and then when they go on the trip, he's taking pictures. The bullies are being jerks. He asks his crush to stand in for a picture for the yearbook, and he ends up getting bitten. And then as it progresses, he turns into Spider-Man, and gains more confidence. And as that's happening, Norman Osborn, Harry Osborn's dad, Peter's best friend's dad, is working on a super soldier mockery of super soldier serum. Captain America, he's working on that serum for the army. But there's side effects they're trying to improve, and the army's like, no, give it to us now, give it to us now. But like, of course, you saw this movie, but this is how I'm doing things. They're like, give it to us now, give it to us now. So they don't have a viable test subject. All they've been doing is testing it on mice, and it's shown that it makes them cuckoo. So there is no choice but for Norman Osborn to test it on himself. And when he tests it on himself, it basically unlocks his Mr. Hyde persona, which you already know is the Green Goblin, and he attacks his friend that helped him, Monk, Tony Shalhoub, and he steals the equipment. He steals his own equipment and goes and blows up his competition and the business partners that basically dumped him and told him that since he's taking forever, they're basically dumping him and going with his competition, and he offs the competition. And then, next thing, as things are going, it's kind of a mirrored thing. They're going through changes, and of course, Norman's going through it for the bad. Peter's going through it for the good. Well, it starts out that he's going through it for himself, but as time progresses, he does it for the good. All this stuff, and then, of course, it's revealed that Norman's company is basically going from under him and going to go side with the competition, and they're going to kick him out, and he's upset about it, because that place is his baby. I mean, how would y'all feel if that happened to y'all? So he, of course, goes into Goblin mode and takes care of business. That's how he takes care of business. And the Goblin, his dark side reveals itself to him later on in the film. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Well, as this is going on, we go back to Spider-Man. Spider-Man's he's like, after the bite, he gets sick and his DNA rewrites itself. He wakes up and he's like, hey, I'm 100% better. I look awesome. He's a whole new dude. He's happy. He's full of life. And his Uncle Ben's like, well, it's good to see you up and around. It's good to see you're better. He's like, yeah. He's like, okay, well, you got to come home and you're going to help me do some stuff. He's like, all right, yeah, I'm going to do it. And he goes to school, and at first, it's little things that he notices, like there's a part where he's sitting down eating lunch and his crush walks by. She slips on orange juice, and he's like, he gets like a tingling, his spidey sense, and he catches her, he saves her, he catches all her food, gives it to her, and she's like amazed. And then later on, I guess he's eating his web fluid, of course, catches his utensil, and he freaks out and he tries to remove it, and as he's removing, his fingers move and they shoot out more, and it catches the tray, throws the tray, hits the bully played by Crossbones, which I never knew, but still awesome. And of course, Crossbones goes after him, wanting to beat him up, and Spider sense kicks in, Spider strength kicks in. He basically beats the bully, even with Harry trying to help him, which didn't go over too well. He leaves, and then he starts, testing out his powers, realizing he can stick to walls, realizing he can shoot web, and swing like George of the Jungle, which he actually does. And then by the time he's done, it's late. His chores have been done by Uncle Ben, and Starts talking. He starts making an excuse to go talk to her MJ and being social with her, and then realizes, he sees, his rival with her boyfriend Flash Thompson, pick her up in a Corvette and take her out, and he's like, he gets envious. He's like, man, if I had a car like that, I'm sitting. If I had a car like that, I could get her. So he's looking. He finds one, and he's like, I gotta find a way to make the money. And so he's looking through the paper. He's looking through it. And he's like, hey, he sees an ad for wrestlers needed. If you can stand to be in the ring for a few minutes in there with Bonesaw McGraw, aka Macho Man Randy Savage, Slim Jim, you would end up with close to $3,000. And he took the deal. He made a suit. He tested out his abilities in his room, and of course, that may get suspicious, and it's kind of emphasizing he's going through puberty. Basically, that's what even the people in the comic book said, that it's basically him, his version of puberty, and it was so funny. I kind of laughed how when he shut the door, you see all the webbing. It's like something out of a Dirty Minded magazine, and how they did, it was kind of cool how they did the product placement, and then. He makes his suit, and then he makes his first version, which is a sweater, a ski mask, and sweatpants and sneakers. And of course, the people that are setting him up are laughing, like, "Are you sure you really want to be here? You're not really wrestling material." He's like, "Yeah, I got it." He's like, "Okay, but if you get hurt or you die, we're not liable for you. You understand?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay, God go with you." And he ends up in there. He ends up there, and that's when Bruce Campbell, the Evil Dead shot out, because of course Sam Raimi and him are best buds, and he's responsible for the Evil Dead series, which is pretty good, by the way. But I need to watch the originals. I'm only familiar with Army of Darkness. So I need to get back to it. He's about to announce him. He goes over. He's like, "Let's see if this guy can handle it." He's like, "What's your name, man?" He's like, "The Human Spider." He's like, "Really? That's what you're going with?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "That's terrible." And he's like, "Guys, introducing the Amazing Spider-Man." He's like, "That's not my name." He's like, "Get out there and fight. Who cares?" And they're like trying to intimidate him. And they're like, "Okay." And he goes in there and he's prepared to fight. And they surprise him by making a cage match. And at first he's freaking out. He's like, "Hey, I didn't sign up for this. Take the chain off. Let me out of here." And it's like, "No." And of course, Macho Man Randy Savage is like, "Hey, you ain't going nowhere. You're mine for 3 minutes. Come on." And when they're fighting, he stays away from them, and he's like, "What are you doing up there? Come down here, get your bow." And he's like, "Please." He's like, "By the way, that's a cute outfit. Yeah. Who gave it to you? Your boyfriend? Your husband?" And it upsets Macho Man. And his girls give him weapons that he's using against Spider-Man. He's bashing them around, and next thing you know, when they're fighting, Spider-Man he's like, "I had enough," and he just starts webbing himself out of there and starts kicking the crap out of him and knocks him out within 2 minutes. And you'd think, there's a funny, interesting part. You'd think the guy who was going to offer him the money, who made the deal, would be fair enough to give him the money, because he did beat him within the time frame. No, the guy was a greedy douchebag and decides to keep the money for himself. But karma comes a knocking as the second Spider-Man steps out with just $100 in his pocket. Another guy comes, who will also make a comeback in the third film, which I will discuss, and robs the guy and takes all the money. And of course, the rich snob is like, "Why didn't you stop him?" Because of course Spider-Man lets him go, and he's like, "Thanks, dude." He's like, "Whatever." And he's like, "Why didn't you stop him?" He's like, "Why is that my problem?" Basically mirroring the douchebag's response. And he's like, "Whatever." And then but of course karma comes a knocking again. And he comes back he's coming back to where his Uncle Ben dropped him off, because his Uncle Ben drove him to what he thought was the library, after they had their talk and gave him the whole great power comes great responsibility speech thing. And he's dead on the floor. The guy shot him. And of course Spider-Man, in sadness and rage, decides, "Okay, I'm gonna go kick some butt. This isn't fair." And he goes and he finds the guy due to the police help, puts on his wrestling outfit, freaks out the guy, beats the crap out of him, and the guy's like, come on, show me mercy, show me mercy. It's like, what about my uncle? He deserved mercy. Did you give him mercy? And he's about to like beat the crap out of him more, and he looks, and he's thinking to himself, it's the guy that I let pass me in the elevator. And it's ironic that what's ironic is it mirrors it mirrors the comic book, and it's great because it mirrors the comic book, and it also gives a nod to the 90s cartoon. So that is part of the 90s cartoon, even though it wasn't the full thing. And of course, the guy being bumbling, not paying attention, tries to pull a gun on Spider-Man. Spidey sense, being able to stop him. The guy freaks out, backs up, trips, falls out the window, dies, and everyone blames Spidey. They go in, but he disappears, goes home, and next thing you know, he goes home. Him and Aunt May talk, and she finds out she's sad too, and I know how it feels, which I've lost people too in my life, and it sucks. It sucks. Which I'm gonna I don't know. I'm debating on whether or not to discuss that because it's personal business. That's really personal to my heart, so I don't know if I'm gonna do that. But okay. Anyway, back to my story. Back to the story of which you already know. Well, it goes on to show that, of course, like I said, the Green Goblin shows up and he destroys his competition. He destroys the army people that dissed him, and then it goes to Harry and Peter and MJ and Flash. They graduate. Of course, MJ dumps Flash, and Harry basically throws him at her, and while Peter and Norman are basically talking about, basically Norman's giving him the speech of, "You're the son I never had. Watch out for Harry. Anything you need, I'm there for you." And of course, he goes home and stuff like that, gets emotional. He starts missing his uncle. I know how it is. I've had moments like that too, where I miss family. But enough about me. I'm going to continue with the movie. As he's doing that, he starts picking up his wrestling outfit, and he looks at the sketchbook of the possibilities of uniforms. And he puts on the uniform. He finally made the Spidey suit, and he's living in New York, and he's being the superhero, the friendly neighborhood web-slinging webhead of a man, and he's doing a lot of things, and saving people, doing his thing, and of course during this whole thing, they're interviewing people, and people are giving them their theories, like, he has a nest in the fountain, he has 8 hands, his calling card's the web, I don't like him, right? All their own theories, and then you see him save the day from stopping purse snatchers, stopping robbers, bank robbers, food mart robbers, just petty stuff for the moment, and of course the bugle's like, who the heck is Spider-Man? J. Jonah Jameson, which J.K. Simmons, great job, great casting for that. That's a perfect role for him. He was made for it, in my opinion. And they're debating on Spider-Man. Of course, J. Jonah Jameson don't like him. No one really knows why. He just doesn't like him. In this universe, nobody knows why. In the animated universe, it's revealed he doesn't like Spider-Man because he wears a mask. Because back then, when he was a rookie reporter, he basically got involved with some bad people during the time he was a newlywed. He was happily married. And when they found out who he was and that he was doing what he was doing, he was making a story on them, they said stop. He's like, no, I'm still running with the story. And so the mob bosses come and they want to kill him, but they end up killing his wife. So instead of, ever since then, he's hated guys with masks. And that's basically why he doesn't like Spider-Man that much. But in this universe, it's not revealed. He just thinks he's a pest. And here's another tidbit. They're like, somebody get me pictures of Spider-Man. He's like, we tried. Eddie can't get him. No matter what he tried, we can't get him. Eddie can't get him. And of course, when he says Eddie, it means Eddie Brock. But the guy don't show up till part 3, which everyone knows. So it's interesting. And as it's going, they're like, hey, what about J. Jonah Jameson's like, hey, why don't we just have a little contest to see who can get us some pictures? And so he's like, of course, who can get me pictures of Spider-Man? You get some money. So during all this, Peter comes home all sad and depressed to the apartment where she's sharing with Harry, and of course Norman's Osborn's there talking business. Norman's talking business, and he's like, of course Harry's like, "What's up with you? You look like somebody basically peeling your shoes." He's like, "Oh man, I got fired again because Doc Connor's fired because I was late." And he's like, "What have you been up to?" And he's like, just doing stuff." And he's like, "Okay." And then like next thing you know, after Norman does his business thing, he's like, well, they find out that Harry's dating somebody and nobody knows at this point, so they're bugging him about it. And the only one that knows about it is, of course, Spidey, but because he ran across her when he was going to, when he was looking for a job. And when they're bugging him, they're like, he changes the subject and he's like, "Hey Pete, you need a job? Dad, help him out." He's like, "No, I'm good." He's like, "Yeah, I'll do it for you, man. I'll call." He's like, "No. I want to be more independent. I want to find my own work." He's like, "I respect that." And that's one thing I admire about people, which basically put it down on Harry's day, because he's always basically wanted his dad to love him, wanted his dad's approval, but basically never got it. And he's like, "Well, what other skills you have?" And then he reads the ad like, "You get paid for taking pics of Spider-Man." He's like, something. I'm a good photographer, and so he starts, stopping, these armored car robberies, and he rigged up his web to hold his camera, and he took pictures of himself saving people and a bunch of other different pictures, and he turns him into J. Jonah. Of course, J. Jonah being a jerk, but that's his nature. He's an awesome jerk. He basically says they stink, but I'll give you $200 for all of them. And he's like, that's kind of cheap. And he's like, well, then take him somewhere else. And then he's about to leave. He's like, no, well, give him back to me. He's like, I get $300. That's standard for basically photographers, freelance photographers. And he's like, okay. He's like, can I have a job? And he's like, no, just keep doing your freelance. If you bring me more photos of this webhead, I'll take them off your hands. But I'm not telling you you're hired. The best thing I could do is send you some beef, some meat. And of course, he gets paid. He gets a check. He hands it over to Betty Brant. Props for putting her in there. If you don't know, in the comics, she was one of Spider-Man's, Peter Parker's girlfriends. Didn't work out. She ended up falling for the Hobgoblin. That went south. And another story for another time. But in this universe, she's just the clerk lady for J. Jonah and Peter Parker, the girl who signs Peter Parker's checks, which is so funny. And he's all happy, he's excited, he's nervous, he's weird. And as times are going on, it just goes crazy. There's a bunch of stuff going on between everybody. Like it goes to the Macy's Day Parade. There's like incidences with Norman. Like he wakes up in all weird and dazed, and during all this he's unsure about it because he's been going through it for a while. And they're like, because when it first happened to him, he ended up on the floor. Harry found him. He's like, "What's up, Dad? You alright?" He's like, "Yeah, I don't remember what happened." And one of his workers comes in. He's like, "Bergstrom's dead. He died. He's been murdered. Somebody stole the army equipment." And he's freaking out. And then during this time, he wakes up, and his true self is revealed. He starts having conversations with himself and about things and everything. And it's funny because all this that happened. Before all this, everything was going to hell for him because, like I said. And sorry if I'm jumping around. I'm sorry if I'm jumping around. It's been a while. Cause like before all of this, after he got signed, after Peter Parker finally officially got a job, he's talking. Which goes to Norman Osborn. They find out that this company is being bought out by his competition. They fire him, and he's pissed, and he vows revenge. And then like later on. there's like a Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade or something like that. So the board members are there. They're looking for. And Harry's there with MJ. Peter's there taking the pictures, as usual, for J. Jonah. And what happened was, that's when the Green Goblin shows up, does his thing. He murders the board members, almost kills MJ. Spidey, he goes in all Superman style, saves people, even Stan Lee. You know, of all people, awesome. Saves him, saves everybody, kicks the Goblin's butt. The Goblin kicks his butt too, even. Of course, the board members die from X-rays or whatever those things are in those pumpkin bombs. And of course, MJ's about to fall to her death while Harry's lying there motionless. So Spider-Man saves her, beats up the Goblin escapes, and you know they start talking. He starts flirting with MJ. MJ flirts with him. You know, and he leaves, and then he goes home, and he's like, they're like, Harry's getting jealous because she keeps talking about Spider-Man, how he's awesome or whatever, and he's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? And of course they're talking. After that, he's like trying to console her, and she hangs up, and then he starts apologizing to Peter. He's like, dude, I'm sorry I didn't tell you about us, man. I apologize, man. It's a low blow. But you never moved. So I was there and I took the shot. I mean, I can relate to Peter. I've been there. I'm still there. That's hard for most men. Even, you know, I ain't gonna lie, me. That's story another time. And of course they make the thing like, what is that thing? Someone has to stop it. Who's gonna stop it? Of course it goes to Norman. He's like waking up in a daze. He's like, what the heck? It's like serious hangover part 1 or something like that. And he starts hearing things and like maniacal demonic laughter, and he's like, what the heck is going on? And he starts hearing a voice. He's like, who's there? And he's like, right here behind you. And he's like, and of course it's a mirror, and it's basically Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing, and he does it so well. And he's like, I don't understand. He's like, did you think it was coincidence? So many good things happening for you. It's like, yeah, it's me. I'm helping you. And he's like, and he shows in the paper, of course, the board members are dead. And he's like, you killed him. He's like, we killed him. He's like, what? He's like, remember what happened in the laboratory? He's like, the super soldier stuff. He's like, bingo, that was me. Hi. And he's like, I'm opening Doshi. There's only one person that can put a stop to it. But imagine if he became our ally. You know. And then during all of this craziness, there's a bunch of, a couple minutes later, they start plotting and everything, and of course Spider-Man's doing his thing. He's taking pictures, earning money, doing his job, being happy about it, you know, trying to be friends with MJ even though he secretly loves her, you know, trying to hide his jealousy from Harry because Harry likes her and she likes Harry for now. I'll get ahead of myself. And then it goes to the part where there's a fire as an incident. No, I'm jumping. Sorry, it's just I'm trying to remember. It goes to the part where, of course, like I said, he's trying to take pictures, trying to make money, trying to hide the fact that he's jealous. And as soon as he takes the photos to J.K. Simmons, J. Jonah basically labels them. He's like, oh, Spider-Man versus the Green Goblin. I made that up. Copyrighted. Everyone who says it, they have to pay me money. And he's like, Peter gets mad at him. He's like, hey, you're falsifying stuff. That's slander, man. Spider-Man's a hero. And he's like, that's not. I resent that. That's libel. And he's like, why are you crying for it? You're his lawyer? If he has a problem, tell him to come to me. Tell him to sue me. That's what makes this country great. And of course, Green Goblin shows up, grabs J. Jonah by the throat. Spider-Man hides. Well, Peter Parker hides, and he's like, where the heck is the guy that takes the pictures of Spider-Man? He's like, I don't know. He just delivers it to us. We don't know who he is. It's like, you're lying, you idiot! Give me him now! I need him. And he's like, I don't know who he is. And then he's like, he's about to kill him. He's about to kill him, and Spider-Man shows up, and he's like, hey, put him down. He's like, oh, I was looking for you. He's like, and J. Jonah's like, I knew you two were together. He's like, hey, Pickle Puss, quiet, we're talking. Boom, smoke bomb, knocks him out, takes him on a little Whitney Houston bodyguard type of ride. Ends up on a rooftop. Spider-Man's waking up from his snooze, and he's like, wake up, you're not dead. I don't want to kill you yet. I just want to talk. And he's like, you're awesome, you got skills. But why do you help a lot of people? They don't like you anyway. And he's like, because it's the right thing to do. And he's like, please. Pretty soon, when they're tired of you, they're just going to push you to the curb, man. We're the exceptional type. We're the difference. So I'm gonna lay it out for you. I could easily squash you like Thanos did the MCU. But I'm offering you a choice. Be my best friend. We can do a lot of great things together till the day we die. Or I could just kill you. Think about it. And the next day he sees, of course, the paper making it seem like Spider-Man's the real menace and that people want him dead, and he's hearing Goblin saying, pretty soon the people are going to hate you, so it's best you join me. And of course, during all this, while he's thinking, he runs into MJ. They start talking, they start hanging out, and she's like mentions he offers to get her food, and she mentions like, no, I'm going out with Harry. But why not come with us? She's like, no, I don't want to impose. And he's about to let her walk away. Of course, some perverts see her, they chase her, they want to do stuff to her. And so he becomes Spider-Man, kicks her butt, saves the girl, gets the kiss, and gets away. And then the next day, there's a big fire. Spider-Man saves the people trapped in there. Here's the lady saying, "Save my baby, save my baby." He saves the baby, of course, and then they hear someone in there, and he goes. At the same time, there's a cop saying, "I'm gonna arrest you." He's like, "But go save the people first, and then come back." It's like, "I ain't coming back after I save them." He's like, "Well, go." And then he goes, he saves her, but it turns out it's a ruse. It's the Green Goblin. He's like, "Did you think about my offer?" And he's like, "You're insane." No. And so they start fighting in there, and it's basically even. Green Goblin's kicking his butt. Spider-Man's getting a few licks in. Being cheesy. He ends up getting cut by one of the goblin goblin blades, goblin batarangs, or whatever they're called, pumpkin orangs or whatever, and he escapes, and Goblin's like, nobody says no to me. You're in trouble. I'm getting you. And then of course it goes to the part where everyone's meeting for Thanksgiving, and he's a little bit out of it, like if he's been hammered for a good while. And during all this, everyone else from Harry, Aunt May, MJ, they're prepping for the meal. This is the first time he's getting to meet MJ for the first time, and Harry's wanting to make an impression. He gets there and he's like, "Hey, I brought fruitcake," and of course he's evil because no one likes fruitcake. Who does? And what's ironic, I figured this out, he's wearing Spider-Man's colors as a suit, so it's interesting. And of course they're getting ready to eat. Spider-Man shows up. He arrives, Spidey style, but they hear him, so they go investigate. And he has to hide. He hides. It's interesting how he hides. He hides on top of the ceiling, and they see the mess. He drops blood from the cut, and he hears, of course, Norman hears something. He goes to investigate. He goes out the window. Spider-Man's hiding underneath he looks up. No Spidey. Goes to look out the window. Spidey's there underneath the thing. So you don't see him. He goes away, and Spider-Man shows up in the front door, dressed in Green Goblin colored suit. Irony. And they, of course, they sit next to each other. They ask him to cut the turkey, and he's about to, and then they notice blood coming out of Peter Parker's suit, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're hurt. Let me get a bandage." He's like, oh no, I just fell. I cut myself real bad. And of course, Norman's like, how did that happen to you? He's like, yeah, I just fell off a curb, man. I got bum rushed by somebody and fell off a curb, and of course he starts putting two and two together. He's like, yeah, I gotta go. I got business deal. And they're like, no, don't go, don't go. And his son's like, why you do this to me? I had this all planned out. He's like, and he starts talking trash about MJ, how she's no good for him. He doesn't deserve her. I mean, she don't deserve him. He's too good for her, and that he's basically a hussy to. That he needs to just hastily quit it. And she heard it. You know, he didn't say nothing back, which is sad. You know, that hurts. And he goes in, she gets hurt, and they start fighting because it's his dad, of course, you know. And Aunt May's a little bit offended. Everyone leaves, and the next thing you know, Norman's talking to himself again. He's like, we now know Spidey's true identity. We can destroy him. And he's like, I can. He's my son's best friend. He's like, no. We gotta do it. We gotta do it. And he's like, well, how are we gonna do it? He's like, easy. You don't attack the body nor the mind. He's like, well, what do we do? He's like, we attack those closest to him. So the first thing he does is go after Aunt May. You know, she's saying her prayers. You know, and I find that kind of offensive how they basically make it seem like God don't help people, but God does. You know, I speak from experience. He does. Anyway, back to the story. She's praying, and she's closing out her prayers. The goblin shows up, and he's like, "Finish it!" And she's like, "From evil!" And he starts laughing, and she goes into shock. She ends up at the hospital. Peter's there, and he's like, Peter's there, and he's hurt because he's like freaking out, and he's like, he hears her, and like, those horrible yellow eyes, oh my god, and he's like, he knows who I am. And then of course this morning, and he's there with his aunt. He's sad, and as you know, he's just there thinking, and then of course MJ, you know, shows up to be there for him and everything, and you know, be there for Aunt May, and there's, you know, a spark, and they're talking, and she's like, there's somebody I like, and he's like, tell me. And of course he thinks it's him. Ironically it is him, but not the side of him that he knows, kind of like, you know, like Bruce Wayne and Batman Forever type of situation. She loves Spider-Man, and he's like, oh well, I'm his photographer, I know the guy, you know, basic story, you know. And she's like, well, does he talk about me? What does he say? Have you talked about me? What have you told him? And so he starts telling her all this stuff that he thinks about MJ, that she's great, she's a good woman, she's awesome, and she starts getting a little flirty with him. And then of course during that time, Harry shows up, and he sees them, of course, holding hands, and of course, and he's like, oh, you're cheating on me, like. And then later he goes home, he hears somebody having a conversation upstairs with his dad, and it's freaky. And he's like, Dad, you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm fine, what you want? And he's like, you're right about her, she's in love with my best friend. He's like, what? Okay, and how does he feel about her? He's like, well, he's loved her since they were kids, so he figures go after her next. He's like, I'm gonna change everything, man. I'm gonna fix everything for you. I'm gonna do it all. We're gonna be better. We're gonna be family again. I'm gonna fix it. And next thing you know, Peter's there. He's with his aunt. He's sleeping. He has a nightmare that the goblin's gonna get him. And he wakes up. Aunt May's there. Aunt May's there, and she wakes him up. She consoles him, and she's like, go home. You look tired. And she's like, yeah, but I am, but you look good. And he's like, and they start talking about, because he smiles, and she's like, finally, I haven't seen one of those since you saw Mary Jane here this morning. He's like, you were supposed to be asleep. And they start laughing. He's like, and then she tells him about how the first time he saw her, he fell in love, and he's like, I didn't even remember that. He's like, yeah. And then he's like, well, Harry loves her. She's this woman. It's like, well, isn't that up to her? Kind of like forcing a feminist way of thinking a little bit there, you know. And they start talking. And she's like, well, she don't know who I am. I'm too shy. Again, I can relate. I kind of like that too. She's like, well, you gotta have confidence. You gotta talk to her. You gotta have the nerve. You know, isn't it cool? Wouldn't it be cool if you told her how you feel? I mean, everyone else knows how you feel. And then he starts clicking the wheels in his head, like, oh crap. And then he calls, tries to call MJ, gets her machine. He's like, don't go anywhere alone. And boom, the Green Goblin picks up the phone. He starts laughing. And he's like, can Spidey come out to play? He's like, where the heck is she? He goes to the bridge, and of course, mirroring the basic incident with kind of like mirroring the incident with Gwen Stacy. He has a bunch of kids hostage in one of those little transporters with a broken cable, and he's holding it, and they're bait for Spider-Man as well as MJ's bait for Spider-Man. And Spider-Man shows up, and he's like, this is why fools are heroes, because you never know when some situation will be like this. And he's like, choose. Who are you going to save? The girl you love or the kids? And he's like, don't do this. And he's like, well, we are who we choose to be. You better make your choice. And he drops them both. But Spider-Man's able to catch both, and he's trying to hold on for dear life to the cable, but it's heavy as heck. And it's amazing because Spider can lift I don't know if it's 10 times its weight or 100 times its weight. If you know, tell me in the comments. I got to do some research on that. It's been a while. And of course, some people, ferrymen, are coming. They're gonna help him, so he can put the transportation on the boat. But of course, the Goblin's being a jerk, trying to knock him off his balance, so he can drop either Mary Jane and kill her, or the kids. But Spidey's able to hold his own. And then finally, when Goblin's about to make the final blow in Spider-Man, some New Yorkers step in and start throwing things at him, and like, leave Spidey alone. You're an a-hole. He's trying to save a bunch of kids, man. That's wrong. It's like, you mess with him, you mess with us, man. And they're throwing stuff at him. And then finally, he's able to save the kids. He's able to save Mary Jane. Goblin gets him, takes him away. They have their final battle, and he's like, why did you have to do this? It didn't have to be like this, man. Could have been best friends. I respected you, man. But you chose them. You chose them over me. He's like, had you not done what I wanted, we could have been cool. But now that you upset me, I'm gonna have to hurt the one you love. I'm gonna have to hurt the one you love, and that upsets Spidey. So, Spider Rage, man. He beats the crap out of the Goblin, knocks him out, almost killing him, and Goblin does a low blow, revealing his true face. He's like, it's me. He's like, you're my best friend's dad. You're my best friend's daddy. I can't believe you did that. You killed those people. You killed those people on the balcony. You tried to kill my aunt. You tried to kill the girl I love. It's like, but not you. I care for you. You're like a son to me. Come here, give me a hug. And Spidey, thinking that Spidey didn't notice, or Spidey don't have spider sense, and he didn't notice that the Goblin summoned the wing, his glider, and he was like, "Come on, you know I love you like a son." He's like, "Yeah, but you're not my dad. My dad is Ben Parker, and he raised me good." And of course, right then and there, Goblin shows up, like, "See you later, Spidey," and sends the glider into Spider, trying to send it to Spider-Man, not realizing Spidey has Spider-Sense, Spider Agility, and able to dodge that, and gets impaled himself and dies. And the last words he mutters is, "Don't let Harry find out." And then, of course, Spidey puts on his suit, drops off the body at home. And within 2 seconds of that, Harry shows up and, of course, thinks, "You killed my dad. You're gonna die." And Spidey gets out. They have the funeral, and he's like vowing vengeance. He's like, "I'm gonna kick Spider-Man's butt. I'm gonna kill him." And he's like, If it wasn't for you, Peter, I'd go crazy. You're like a brother to me. I love you, man. Which is kind of ironically low blow right there. And then he, as this is happening, Andrew decides, you know what? I'm over Harry. I'm over Spidey. I want Peter. And of course, Peter's like, I can't be with you. I can't. She's like, why? He's like, I just can't. I can be a friend though. That's all I can do. And he walks away. You hear his little mantra of, well, great power comes great responsibility, and I'm Spider-Man. That's my job. And it basically ends there. And like, how do I like this thing? What I like about it, like I said, now it holds up pretty well. I love the film. You know, in my opinion, yes, it has its flaws. There are some things I wish I could change, but there are moments that I like. Moments that I like, moments that I didn't like. Of course, what I liked, the tiny little father-son moment with Ben and Peter, even though it wasn't long, but of course that's to happen, especially if it's an origin story comic movie, because that does happen in the comics. And the emotion of how he felt when his Uncle Ben passed, it's hard. It hits, man. It hits. But there's a lot of good things too. I mean, I loved how they did the suit. Of course, it's not like the original comic book suit, but what can be? I mean, look at the Batman, the original Batman suit, compared to the Dark Knight suit. I'm gonna go on that later. But the suit's decent. I love the little the little changes, though they were little. I liked them. I enjoyed them. Like the webs coming out of him, so he didn't have to mess with the web shooter if it breaks, if it busts, or he runs out, because that's always a problem. So that was a nice touch. Even though you didn't notice it, you heard it. His spider sense, that was a nice touch too. If you really paid attention, you really paid attention and you heard it, you could know the spider sense. That was a pretty good thing. I liked the actors. William Dafoe. I think he did a great job portraying two different people. Two different personalities, distinct personalities. The good, quiet, shy, timid, at the same time absurd Norman Osborn, as well as the psychotic, maniacal Green Goblin, or Marvel's version of the Joker, in my opinion. That was great how he did it, how you could easily tell the difference. Boom, flip the switch, you could tell the difference. You could tell the difference with the character. It was awesome. Jay Jonah's character was J.K. Simmons' character is Jay Jonah. Awesome. He was made for that role. In my opinion, he was made for that role, just like Hugh Jackman and Wolverine. Is just some characterization, some acting. Sorry, family thing going on back there. Some characters are just made for. Some actors are just made for that role. That was good. I liked the little cameo nods. They were so great. Lucy Lawless as one of the people talking about Spider-Man. Xena. That was pretty cool. Bruce Campbell showing up many times in showing up as the fight announcer and giving Spider-Man his thing. Macho Man Randy Savage showing up as Boom Saw McGraw, and that's pretty cool. William Dafoe, like I said, great job. You can tell the difference. Tobey Maguire, decent job, but I'm gonna get into why it's decent for me. James Franco, perfect choice, even though I am not sure. I have to look it up. I don't know if that was his first role or not, but perfect choice for Harry, because Harry, from the cartoon, he's kind of like that, a little bit timid, wants his father's approval, kind of shy around people, until he has his moment, which comes later. Um, Kristen Dunst as MJ. Man, that was interesting. That was an interesting choice. That was good. That was pretty good, and they gave you a little insight in her home life. That was interesting. That was interesting. I got kind of that same vibe from Spider-Man animated series where Doctor Strange is involved, etc., and she gets in a cold, blah blah blah, and it's stuff like that. Um, that was interesting, and you know how just they played off each other. Peter Parker, MJ, perfect match together. Um, it just proves, you know, that's they're meant to be ever since the comics. MJ, Peter Parker, Spider Man. There's also the Gwen Stacy, Peter Parker thing, etc., etc. He's even dated Betty Brant, but a whole another story for a whole another time, and especially Liz Allen and stuff. But again, whole another story for a whole another time. That chemistry was good. You could feel it. You could feel that chemistry between Toby and Kirsten, aka Peter Parker and MJ. Of course, Rosemary Harris, I think her name is. She was the perfect Aunt May for me, because I look at her and I picture the animated series, so that was perfect for me. It was great. Also, like, another cameo I liked was Tony Shalhoub. I didn't even know it was him till I really listened to his voice, aka Monk or the guy from 13 Ghosts. Good job, good casting, good everything. I just it was great. Everything was good. The acting was good. Little bit gripes there though. Little gripes there, which I will bring it in a little bit. Just the choreography of the fights, great, awesome. Of course, how Spider-Man fought is kind of, interesting. It was interesting. The fights between him and the Green Goblin, pretty good. The way the Green Goblin fought, the way the Green Goblin was just awesome. It was great. The cinematography, first time, good. It was pretty decent. Editing, done real well. I gotta say, did good. Done real well. The soundtrack is, it's just reminiscent for me. It's reminiscent of Tim Burton's Batman. It reminds me of that a little bit. So it's pretty good. Pretty good. And also the regular soundtracks, like Sum 41, What We're All About, that's pretty good. Having a nod to the original classic Spider-Man song, Spider-Man, it was decent, pretty good. Pretty great. I love that theme song anyway, by the way. Hero by Jack Roller. That is one of my anthems. I like it. I love it. It was great. And first time, the CG, the effects, pretty good. It was improved. I gotta say it's an improvement. Even from back then, back in this time. I mean, of course, it was a long way compared to other movies back then that they did. But of course, they had to do with what they could at the time. And still, it was decent. Sometimes you noticed it, sometimes you didn't. But hey, that's how it is. It's progression. It was good. Things I didn't like. I gotta say, for me, even though I did like the casting choices, this is my opinion, so please don't be rude about it. Tobey Maguire did great as Peter Parker, but for me, he was a little bit. Watching it now, back then I was like yes, but now watching it now, I gotta say, this Spider-Man's a little bit lackluster. A little bit corny. I mean, yeah, Spider-Man's corny, but he's corny with edge. He's cocky. He's brash. He talks. He talks crap to the villains. That's his way. That's his attitude. It was really hard for me to believe that attitude in this movie. But then again, it's basically the first time see it was the first Spider-Man movie brought to the live screen for a long time. Of course, originally they were going to do, there's a bunch of them trying to get in the works, but never made it back then. Which, of course, I'm pretty sure you could find a lot of people talking about that. Anyway, like I said, he, in my opinion, he was good as a shy, awkward teenage or 20, 30-something-year-old nerd. Peter Parker. Good choice. Oh, Spider-Man? Meh. That's the one thing I didn't like about it. It's just meh. Like, his character is, like, you know, it was just, I couldn't feel the attitude with him having the suit on. It was kind of weird. But I like how, you know, with the character progression, you know, going from being a bumbling, not thinking much of yourself, and proving others wrong, and rising from the ashes, becoming a man in your own right. That's what it basically was. That's what the purpose was of this thing. But I would change. I'd say not much. Sorry, battery died of the camera, and was fixing the position of my lighting. Like I said, what I would change. Like I said, there wasn't much to change. Maybe, I don't know. For example, my opinion, Tobey Maguire could have worked more on. Sorry, something's sticking up here. Okay, got it. Okay, what I would change? My opinion. This is my opinion. No disrespect to Tobey Maguire, he's a good actor, but I didn't buy him as Spider-Man. Now watching it, looking back, I did not really buy him. I couldn't buy him as Spider-Man. The cockiness, the attitude, it just wasn't there. He, in my opinion, just work on that area. Work on that area, because, you know, Willem Dafoe, Green Goblin, he did a good job. You know, you looked in, it was believable. Hearing him, it was believable. You could hear him in another room. It felt like he was having a conversation with somebody. Peter Parker, it was like hard. Yeah, of course, Tobey Maguire, he did good as the bumbling nerd, the awkward nerd. But Spider-Man, the attitude wasn't that. I couldn't feel it. It would have been great. I gotta say, I don't know, maybe, even though I know they're doing it now, you know, have some hints, even though is a hint in there, but you don't really realize it till like later in life if you pay real close attention to another Spider-Man villain in there that could have been showing up in the other sequels. But, you know, give more shout outs to other villains. You know, don't show them, just shout it out. It would have been awesome to, you know, get a mention of, you know, Adrian Toomes or you know, I know they couldn't do a shout out to Wilson Fisk, but due to the fact that he is Daredevil's main antagonist, but they could have given little hints to, you know, Matt Gargan or, you know, Scorpion or Cletus Cassidy in some shape or form. They could have at least do that. You could have given it some shout outs. You know, that's what I've done. Give it a little bit of shout outs, because of course they're doing that now, but back then you could have done that since, you know, you own the rights to the characters. You could have given shout outs to that, or what were some other characters owned by Columbia? I don't really quite recall. I need to look into it, but that's one thing I probably would do. And like, you know, because you could really, and like be more believable. Have Peter Parker be more, you know, believable as Spider-Man in this movie, because like I said, seeing it for the first time, I was in fanboy mode. So of course, I fell for it. But like, he could have been more believable because watching it now, in my opinion, it was just laughable. I mean, of course, for the time, that was one of the things. Of course, all the firsts are kind of corny but good in a way. It's good to me still, but it could have been more believable. He could have been more believable as Spider-Man. Because of course, the Amazing Spider-Man has the same problem in a way, but in reverse, which I'm going to talk about that later. And of course, the new one, the current one, has issues too, but I'll talk about that later. Like just work. I would have just improved that a little bit. Maybe give it kind of I would have had Toby like do kind of a gruff voice for Spider-Man, like a badass attitude voice, like "What's up? What you got for me, man?" or something like that. That would have been cool. You could have instead of him like making little jokes and like, of course, they had that incident where he ripped the thing off of the bus to show that he's got spider strength, but that could have been better. You could have emphasized it a little more. I mean, yeah, he saved two people, yanked them away from the bus or whatever, or no, not the bus. He yanked them away from being crushed, or. And I know that they show this in the sequels as it goes on, but you could have done it there too. I mean, like for example, and he couldn't have done it as Peter Parker because he would have exposed himself. But as Spider-Man, you could have done something like that. You could have at least shown more of a thing of spider strength. Spider strengths. I mean, of course, you saw the spider agility, the spider web. It was a little bit weird. You saw the spider sense a little bit. It was hinted at. You heard it. You move real fast, and you could have emphasized more than just him when on the powers. That's what I would have done. Emphasize more on the powers, or you could have had and like in the, of course, time constraints, they had to shrink it down a little bit, but in the comics, in the cartoon, he tortures him a little bit. He plays cat and mouse a little longer before he confronts him, Green Goblin, and does stuff. He's done a lot of things to him. They could have done that. They could have had, of course, Green Goblin could, stalk him a little bit. Have William Dafoe's Green Goblin stalk Peter Parker, stalk Tobey Maguire's Spider as that, not reveal that it's him yet. Leave death threats or some death things or whatever, threats or whatever you want to call them. Leaving threats on his desk, like I'm watching you, or I know who you are, and he's like doesn't know who it is. Kind of like a thriller kind of a vibe, and and Sam Raimi's good at that. Evil Dead, for example. Have him like hovering over him, watching, and he hears the glider, and he looks around, no one's there, and but he senses it in spider sense. He could have had that, like have him tease him, play with him, like hey, like come on, you can't see me, but I can see you. You can't get me, but I can get you. I know who you are before it's discovered. Before it's discovered. Could have done that. Like I said, you could have given more shout outs to the villains. I would have done all these things. It would have been cool. It would have been interesting. But then again, time restraints. Of course, show his talent with the web. Of course, they did it in the sequels. Other than like, boom, I make the thwip. I make the thing, and I can swing. I can swing like Tarzan. Ooh, you could have done more. There's parts where he's falling from great heights. He could have done something like the web parachute like he did in the cartoon. That would have been so cool. But again, I guess they didn't have the budget or the time, or they didn't think it was necessary. Of course, like in the comics and the current Spider-Man, the wings, the web wings. They could have made it more interesting like that. That would have been so cool. Have him be have him work on his cockiness, his brashness, his attitude a little bit more. That would have been good. I like the fact that they kind of they did. I know they did hint at a possible other villain, but he wasn't hinted more until Amazing Spider-Man came around. Dr. Connors, but they didn't show him, but they talked about it, and we of course know he's the Lizard. But for those who did not know, unless they picked up a comic book or watched the cartoon, it would have been interesting to, at least show him and see it happen. See like hints of it. Like you could have had him go. They could have shown us the lab that he was late to, that he got fired from, and while he's leaving, there could have been like, lizards all over the place, and of course the syringes, like emphasizing they're working on something. That's possibly going to be the next thing. Or like you could have shown that and could have said, yeah, sleight of hand. That's not really what's gonna happen. What's gonna happen is this, and maybe like if that after that happens, he's like, I'm getting a call, and he calls, and then, of course on the other line, Doc Ock, and that's your leeway to part two. That would have been cool. That would have been cool. Other than that, but then again, in time, everything improved over time, but that's what I would change. That's my opinion. All in all, I like it. I still like it after all these years. It still holds up for me. Is there problems? Is there issues? Yes. But what film doesn't have issues? What film doesn't really bother anybody? Some people like certain films, some people don't. This film, even though it's kind of dated now, being the generation, the year we're in now, it still holds up for me. It's still pretty good. Cheesy, corny, but good. Well, anyway, that's my thoughts on Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. That's my point of view on it. So there you go. Well, that's it for me today. I'll catch you again later. Leave it in the comments what you thought of this one. If you think I could do better, or you think something could be improved, then again, and bear in mind I'm doing the best with what I got. And tell me what you thought of the interview, of the review of this movie. What was your thoughts on the movie? What could have been better? What would you have done if you made a Spider-Man film? What would you have added? Drop it in the comments. Tell me. Share it. Share your thoughts. Feel free. But again, be polite, be courteous, be kind, respectful. And I'll catch y'all guys next time. God bless. Peace. I'm done.